With modern roofs now having smaller rafter spacings, the likelihood of being able to fit a VELUX roof window without having to remove at least one structural timber are becoming slimmer and slimmer. So if you're having to remove one, you're already opening up the possibility of having a combination installation of roof windows. Now, if it's a loft conversion that you're working on, the roof windows are often the only source of daylight coming into that room. And with the recommendation of a 15 to 20% glass to floor ratio, the ability to be able to put in multiple windows will be valid for the customer. It could be that you're just looking to extend along the length of the roof, but don't forget we can also go width-wise as well. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So naturally, if we're removing a structural timber from the roof, we have to make sure that the work we carry out is still structurally sound. Now, there are a couple of options of combination flashings that VELUX can provide that also supply you with the appropriate structural timbers. We have our first option, which is the twin flashing. This allows for an 18mm frame gap between the windows, and for that we have our EBY support trimmer. This interlocks into the windows, is secured to your structural timbers that brace the opening and then help blend the windows as well as providing structural support. Our second option is for the larger frame gap of 100mm. Here, it's a very similar design to the EBY, but this is the EKY. The functionality is the same, we just obviously have a larger section to fill the 100mm space, and you would still attach it via brackets into your structural timbers. Using these becomes more vitally important that you don't box the windows in, otherwise the brackets become visible. So always splay the internal lining to conceal the brackets behind the lining itself. Our third option is what we can see here, where we're able to utilize existing roofing timbers and just fit the windows either side and then just frame and plasterboard those into place. Now naturally for this, or even for any of our combinations, there's a consideration for structural integrity, which your local building officer will certainly be able to guide you on that. You may have to double up the timbers, you may even have to treble them up depending on the size of combination, but they will provide that guidance on a regional basis. So in this video, we're going to be installing a combination of two opening roof windows with two fixed elements below them. The fixed elements are the only type that we make that aren't designed to open naturally because they always have an opening window above them. We're going to fit these with a 100mm frame gap, which is a more standardized version of the Combis flashings, but we can offer a range of flashings for any gap from 60 to 400mm, which is handy to know if you have to double or even treble up your timbers. So you can still ensure that you leave sufficient space either side of the timber for adequate insulation. That's why for today we're just going to be using a single timber, which would still provide us with ample space for our BDX insulation collar and the BFX underfelt collar. So we're now just about halfway through the installation of the windows. So for the next part, I'm just going to replicate the previous steps, but just break it down a little bit to explain some of the different brackets that we're using and some of the things to just be aware of as you're installing the combination. So you see now with this extra bottom element in place, we can see the two other different brackets that we use for this installation. At the very base of the window, we have the brackets that are supplied with the roof window itself. And here you can see the additional brackets that are supplied with the fixed element. You'll also notice that because of the positioning of these brackets, you may often need to put in a small infill batten to ensure we can get the fixing. What we do now is with this in place, temporarily fix it to stop it from moving, and then I'll pop the top frame in and we'll lock that together and get it all fixed down. Now before securing the rest of the brackets, what we want to do is just make sure that the frames line up flush to each other, and then we just pop a couple of fixings in through the base of the fixed element, and that locks the frames together. Once that's done, we can then carry on fixing the brackets down, making sure everything's square and level, and then properly secure all the screws. With the windows now installed, we just need to fix the flashings and claddings. So I'm just going to put a course of tiles just below the window, and that'll allow me to carry on fitting the flashings and finish off the installation. So for this next stage, we just need to pop the joining section here and the little blocks that will then hold that into place. Now these are found in the specific ETW box and the box that came with the actual fixed element window. So our next stage involves a slight break with the norm. Rather than going from the bottom all the way to the top, we're actually going to have to start by fitting this top side frame covers before we actually come down and fit these lower ones, because the lower one will actually interlock in with it. Once I've done that, I'll then fit the lower section to cover over the gasket. One thing to bear in mind though, because I will need to fit this top gutter just before I do the side frame covers, is that you have a little joining strip here that just comes taped inside the channel, just so it doesn't disappear or get lost within the packaging. So remember to remove this prior to fitting it, because you will need this right towards the end. With the flashings in place now, all that's left is to pop the sashes back in, and then we have two little internal trim pieces that just seal off the gap between the two elements inside. We hope you found this video to be of benefit, but please also remember, if you have any further queries or if you'd like any further advice or support, you can contact our customer service team. You can also download installation instructions and find further product information on our website.